Okay, I'm going to read some more. I can't put this book down, so I said, well, if I'm going to read, I'm going to continue reading for you guys too. Again, as a reminder, reading from the book Gods of the Bible. And we started on chapter 6, back and forth with the Elohim. And we covered the sign of Cain, the antediluvian patriarchs, the great descent. And now we're going to start on page 106, walking with the Elohim. Okay, this book is as weird as it sounds. As I'm reading it, part of my mind is saying, this is so strange, this is so strange, but at the same time it's confirming and validating those what I felt this whole time. Each time I tried to read the Bible, um, there was, I just kept getting the feeling that there's something more. There's something more, and things have been taken out. We're not getting the whole story here. And this book is helping me put those pieces together and making sense of those feelings that I've had all this time. And again, this is not for everyone. And a lot of people, this is going to really rock your world, because it totally destroys your core beliefs of what we have been taught by people that we love, by pastors and priests and whoever in our lives, people that we trusted. So by hearing this information, you're going to feel some kind of way about it. But again, this is for truth seekers. And for me, it's making a lot of sense. And like I said, it's kind of filling in the blanks and solidifying or helping me gel together these feelings that I've had all along. So let's get started reading again, y'all. Walking with the Elohim. Jared's son, Enoch, is in no way inferior to his father. His story, too, is a special one worth telling. Possibly, when it's coming in, possibly it is even more exciting and vivid than what his father Jared had experienced during his lifetime, namely that the sons of the Elohim had come to earth to seduce the daughters of the Adamites and sleep with them. The Bible tells us about Enoch that at the age of 365, he leaves with the Elohim. For all the other patriarchs, at the age of death is 930, 912, 905, 910, and so on. Noah is 950 years old when he dies. Enoch, on the other hand, leaves at the age of 365. He does not die. He leaves with the Elohim. He is among the undead like Elijah and Moses. Elijah departed with the Ruach of the Elohim. Moses, according to Flavius Josephus, disappeared from the land of Moab in a cloud, a term referring to the flying machine of the Elohim. In the same way, Enoch left before dying. According to the Bible, and that's Genesis 5, verses 22 through 24, Enoch walked faithfully with the Elohim 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, the days of Enoch were 365 years. Enoch walked faithfully with the Elohim. Then he was no more, because Elohim took him away. Hebrew exegesis comes to help us, stating that Enoch did not die of old age in his bed, but disappeared too soon compared to the average life of the time. So Enoch did not die. The Elohim took him away. The story of Enoch can be found in the book of the secrets of Enoch from the Apocrypha of the Old Testament. Enoch himself tells us about his departure. When I was 365 years old, on the solemn day of the first month, I was alone in my house, grieving and weeping with my eyes. While I was resting in my bed, sleeping, two men as great as any I had ever seen on earth appeared to me. In this first passage, Enoch says that he was sleeping, and then he goes on to say, their faces were like sunshine, their eyes like burning lamps. From their mouths came forth fire, their clothes a plumage of feathers, and their arms like golden wings at my bedside. They called me by my name. I arose from my sleep. So Enoch was asleep before he was called, and he woke up. This is a fundamental concept. The editor says in the footnote, the paleonastic expression is meant to emphasize that what happens to Enoch on this occasion is not a vision, but something that happened. We always pretend that what is written is true. If we pretend, we keep saying we can understand. If we believe that what the ancient writers wrote is just the product of their imagination, we can take all these books and throw them away because they are useless. However, if we throw them away, we also throw away the Bible. And if we throw away any of the Bible, we throw away everything based on it. If, on the other hand, we intelligently pretend that these facts happen, then we understand many things, and the narrative becomes coherent. The whole situation is so realistic that Enoch will later appear before the great leader, the Lord of the empire, and will say that his face became so hot and burnt that an angel had to intervene to cool it. Who can stand before the face of the King of Kings and endure the tremendous shock or burning heat? The Lord called one of his terrible angels and placed him beside me, and the angel cooled my face. This episode recalls the story of Moses asking Yahweh for an opportunity to see his kavod. Yahweh consented, but warned him that he could not see it from the front, but only from behind, for if he saw it from the front, he would die. In order not to die, Moses is advised to hide behind a rock and see the kavod from behind once it had passed. Exodus 33:18 through 21. Can we even imagine that the glory of God can be seen from behind? At any rate, we know from Exodus that Moses' face was burned after he came down from the mountain where he saw the kavod of Yahweh. His skin was burned. The story of Enoch is highly realistic, as we can see from his remarks. I had a burnt face, and they were standing beside me. At this point, he was awake, and it was no longer just a dream. Furthermore, Enoch's description of the two figures standing next to him reminds us of the birth of Noah, where Noah appears with big shining eyes, his face white, his face radiant, just like the figures Enoch describes. But there are more connections between Enoch and Noah. Genesis 6:9 says of Noah that he was righteous and perfect in his generation. By the Septuagint, righteous man and perfect, the Bible does not mean so much from a moral point of view. In the concreteness of the Hebrew language, the passage suggests that Noah was righteous and perfect in physical and anatomical and genetic terms. The Bible also says that Noah walked with God, that is, he walked back and forth with the Elohim, which is precisely what is said of Enoch, as we have seen. The Elohim chose these figures to be taken on long journeys until Enoch is taken forever. So it is said of Enoch and Noah, respectively, in Genesis 5:22 and 22 and 24, and Noah in Genesis 6:9, that they walked with the Elohim. In passing, it should be remembered that the 23 kinds of flying chariots are described in the book of Enoch. Enoch traveled a lot. He was initiated into astronomy mysteries, the heavens, secrets, etc. In other words, he received scientific knowledge that he had to record in writing for the benefit of humankind. In this respect, Enoch is comparable to the figure in the Sumerian Akkadian stories of Emiduranki and Emidurana, who is also the seventh of the so-called antediluvian kings, as listed in the famous Sumerian king list. Emidurranki receives from the Anunnaki, the Sumerian counterpart of the biblical Elohim, a series of information that he will pass on to humanity. But what does it mean that Noah and Enoch walked with the Elohim? First, we must note that the expression for Enoch and Noah is precisely the same. The Bible uses the verb itchalakik in addition to the term Elohim and the word et, which means with. So the traditional translation for this passage is that Noah and Enoch walked with God. The original Hebrew text, however, contains a determinative article before the word Elohim, ha Elohim. That is arbitrarily left out in traditional translations. The literal, physiological, correct translation would be, he walked with the God. Let us not forget that the Hebrew article has no distinction between singular and plural. So another correct translation could be, he walked with the gods. But suppose Elohim is singular here. The article is still wrongly omitted in traditional translations. The line should thus read, he walked with the gods. But what does with the gods, but what does with the God mean? If God is not a proper name, then with which God did Enoch walk? In a different place in the Bible, the Elohim says to Jacob, you must build an altar to the God who has shown himself to you. Genesis 35:1, thus referring to a very specific God, the one who has shown himself to Jacob, not another one. With which God did Enoch walk? This is not a rhetorical question. To avoid this kind of problem, we suggest a more appropriate translation for this passage. He walked with the Elohim. We do not translate Elohim because nobody in the world knows exactly what Elohim means. By leaving Elohim untranslated, anyone can give this term the meaning they want. But at least we have respected the biblical text, and we have not arbitrarily removed a determinative article that is very important. We always say, let us leave Elohim untranslated. But there is more. What does walk with actually mean? The term walked translates the Hebrew verb halak. This verb is used for Enoch and Noah in the so-called hitzpael form, which in Hebrew expresses the idea of doing something intensively, reflexively, and reciprocally. Thus, the hitzpael form here indicates precisely that one is not simply walking, but constantly going back and forth reciprocally. Enoch and the Elohim go back and forth with each other all the time. No expression could make this continuous physical relationship more concrete. The term is used twice with Enoch and once with Noah. A more correct and respectful translation of this critical biblical expression found in Genesis 5:22 through 24 and Genesis 6:9, respectively applied to Enoch and Noah, should read, "He walked, went, traveled back and forth with the Elohim." Wow. See how many per pages. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and finish this one up. 15 minutes. Actually, I'm going to stop here and do another do another video, because I don't want you to. I'm trying to get it in chunks for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and stop it on this page, and we're going to start again on page 109, and we're going to discuss the anointment of Enoch. Page 109, the appointment of Enoch. See you guys in a minute or later.